Good morning and welcome everybody to the Lane County Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, August 18th, 2026. We'll start off with Mr. Mokrajewski. How are you doing this morning?
Good, thank you, Chair.
Council Bovet. Everything's great. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
We don't have any from staff.
Okay, any emergency business?
No.
Next up, we're going to have employee recognition. Very exciting, and I see our interim public works director, Ms. Williams, coming to the table, and Brittany, Law Library.
Well, thank you, Chair. So we're here to recognize Brittany Young, our law librarian. I think you all know Brittany. She is known for breaking down, well, she's known for her passion for access to legal services, but also for breaking down systemic barriers to access to legal resources for people. And Brittany was honored in April at the Oregon Library Association's annual conference in Portland by receiving the Oregon Library Association's Anti-Racism Recognition Award. She was recognized for her dedicated work in dismantling systemic barriers within librarianship and her advocacy for a fair, accessible justice system in Oregon. She's recognized, I think anyone who interacts with Brittany knows she's recognized for her empathetic leadership across various Oregon Library Association roles. She's very active across the state. She is always interacting with folks in the lower level of the public service building who are trying to access services and oftentimes don't have, may not have representation and may not necessarily know exactly how to navigate the legal system, which can be very complex. She's also a key contributor to the podcast Overdue, Weeding Out Oppression in Libraries. Brittany currently serves as Lane County's law librarian and is an active member of the Oregon Library Association's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and Anti-Racism Committee. So we're here to recognize Brittany for her recognition by the Oregon Library Association with the Anti-Racism Recognition Award, and of course to thank her for the incredible advocacy, passion, and work that she does every day, serving members of our community who are trying to access legal resources. So I'll ask Judy Williams, who's wearing multiple hats, as you may know, to say anything in addition she'd like to.
Thank you, Steve. While I'm not her supervisor at the moment, I was delighted to come back and take the time to recognize Brittany. As Steve said, she did get this amazing award from her peers back in April, and I just wanted to highlight a couple additional things about Brittany. One, as Steve mentioned, just her passion for access, so access to services, access to justice, her strong desire to provide the best experience to each and every patron, her ability to seek out connections and foster genuine relationships, and her infectious personality. Brittany entered a solo librarian role with no predecessor or documentation and rebuilt core services to meet community needs. She worked with our capital planning folks to transform the Lane County Law Library into an accessible, community-centered hub for access to justice, not just a repository for books. She has expanded the library's reach beyond its walls, providing partnerships, improving community trust, and strengthening public services. She's co-created, as Steve mentioned, the Equity Focus podcast promoting inclusive values in libraries. And one thing that I wanted to highlight, Brittany and her counterpart Amy in Washington County recently received a grant to study law libraries that would ultimately inform Oregon's access to justice strategy. Together, they surveyed and visited each of the 36 counties, learning critical information about libraries all along the way. And Amy recently shared, what struck me most about our travels was that her advocacy doesn't have an off switch. After every single library visit, the observations she shared were consistently grounded in a lens of equity. And one result of that trip, she co-created Oregon's Law Library Service Provider Network, supporting rural and solo librarians throughout the state. So these are just a few examples that I wanted to share that show how Brittany embodies the values that we have at Lane County our organization, and just wanted to take a moment to highlight and recognize her. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Chair, for any comments or questions.
Okay, thank you so much. To the board. Commissioner Farr.
First, I would ask if Brittany has a few words, because Brittany usually does.
You know me so well. I just wanted to thank you all and the county for recognizing me for the award that the Oregon Library Association gave. It means a lot to me, and as I think most of us know, this work is not done alone, and I'm thankful every day for the people that I've been able to learn alongside, collaborate with, and have also been challenged by. They remind me every day, along with our patrons, that the importance of free public government, law libraries, and the staff within, their importance to equity in our communities and access to justice in our legal system, but in all of our systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to talk about transformation ever so briefly. I have pictures, Brittany, of what the law library looked like before you came there, and I don't know how you did it, how you made that ceiling 2 feet taller. It was impossible to do that, but what it used to look like, Mr. Mokrais, you recall, because when Mr. Mokrais came on board, the previous regular administrator wanted to close the law library and do everything online. Well, Steve didn't allow that to happen. In fact, went the other direction, funded the library, gave money for the remodel, and also for your full-time position. And if you've not been to the library lately, if you've not been there, it really is worth a trip. You can go down there, you can sit next to one of the computers, have your lunch there for that matter. It really is a wonderful place to visit for families. You have the children's corner down there. That's an amazing place. It's under-advertised. The law library should be chock full of people all the time. It used to feel like an archive. It still is an archive, but it used to feel like one. Now it feels like a bright, open library, and you can't believe there are no windows down there. It's so bright. Brittany, marvelous job. Thank you very much. I love serving on the Law Library Committee, and you have a wonderful group of people who are your advisors there.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Commissioner Lovell.
Thank you, Chair. Brittany, you and I have had some great conversations down at the law library, and you've done just a great job. When I heard you're getting this award, I wanted to make sure I put down what I really respected about you. So if you don't mind, I want to read this to you. You've not only run a perfectly functional and necessary service at the law library, even in the basement, I might add. Somehow we need to get you a capital investment and put a window in there, but that's another story. But the recognition due you is well warranted and appreciated, not only from me, but I'm sure from my colleagues at the board. Might I mention that you have infinite compassion? I've noticed that and seen that firsthand. You have understanding, and even when people approach you with hostile kinds of approaches, your de-escalation skills are perfect. And what I want to say about that is many times that when people face that, you still give compassion, honor, and respect to those people, even when they may not deserve it, but you still put that out. And I want to make sure that you're honored for that in your service to the library, because that service to the citizens of our county makes them feel honorable even when they're not giving honor. And so I want to just make sure we honor you for that part of the job that you do, and I respect that greatly, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Trigger.
Thank you. Well, mostly I just want to say what Brittany said. I really want your words to stay right in front and center. And so I will just amplify them by saying how important it is that you hold that value of equity in the center of the work. I know a lot of attorneys come and use the law library, but they know how to access what they need. They have all the resource and connections and ability to get information. It's really the folks who are so under-resourced and don't even necessarily know how to look for what they know they need, but they know they need it, and you're there to help them navigate. And that's just it's such a critically important leveler across the community to allow everybody to have access to information, because that really is something that we should never be withholding from anyone is information, and particularly the kinds of circumstance people are needing legal information and precedents. And so just really appreciate not just the service you provide, but the values that ground the way you provide them. Thank you so much for doing that and for being part of Lane County, and congratulations on the recognition. That's a really big deal.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
I absolutely concur with all of the commissioners, and I just want to say, Brittany, the county is lucky to have you. Thank you for all your work there for so many years. And even though it is located on the basement floor, you know, it's across from the jury assembly. So it gets a lot of exposure from people going through and noticing, you know, they're standing in line for a while. So they're going to notice that you're right there in the hallway. And hopefully that helps with getting the word out that we have a law library. I know that not every county has one. So it's just another one of those county services that is vital to folks in the community. And you just are a shining star, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well, yes, Brittany, it was funny that listening to Steve and Judy both used the term passion, which when I saw you were on the docket was one of the first words that came to my mind. And part of that is, you know, just talk about walking through the basement. You're coming in and you're always a bright light when I poke my head in and just say good morning or I'm leaving for the day. And, you know, you really help everybody have a better day down there. And, you know, this award is greatly earned, but there's more to it than that. You're a shining light down in that basement, and you've transformed that place into a friendly library to come into. And, you know, as Commissioner Farr mentioned, I'll stop in there and sit down and catch up on a couple of things. It's nice and quiet and it's welcoming. So great job. And I can't wait to listen to the Overdue podcast. I'm excited. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right, next up, we have public comments. Speakers will be taken in the order in which they sign up and will be limited to 3 minutes. We will start with here in Harris Hall and then move to online with Ms. Gebb at the end of that. Your 3 minutes will start when you come to the dais and state your name, and leading us off is Mr. John Helmer.
And Hollis, looks like.
All right. Well, good morning. My name is John Helmer. I live in Commissioner Lovell's district. I'm here with my friend and compatriot, collaborator, Hollis Sjostrom, who will also have comments after me. We have the happy task of being here to celebrate Lane County parks. They do great work all over, but most particularly, I'm here to celebrate their work to improve access to the top of Mount Pisgah. And I'm sorry, I think my phone is ringing. So we're here to celebrate access to the top of Mount Pisgah. This is really the culmination of 2.5 years of work that began when we got the idea of having track chairs, these electric track chairs out at the Mount Pisgah Arboretum. And one of the things that we immediately found that was unexpected was you put somebody, you get them started in a track chair, and what they say is, I want to go up there. I want to go to the upper reaches of Mount Pisgah. I want to go to the top. It was not something I had thought of, but there are people in this community who've been here all their lives, maybe decades. They've always heard it's a great place to go. Everybody goes there, but it's not for me, is what they had to kind of conclude. Well, it is now. The main problem most recently was the very top section was a very rocky trail with bedrock sticking out. So Hollis and I started an effort to ask that get fixed. And long story short, we found just the most super responsive collaborators in Brett Henry and Steve Rafuse with Lane County Parks, who were just immediately welcoming and can-do attitude to think about how to fix this. They found some funding, hired Oregon Woods, and this summer that track chairs can now more regularly get to the top of Mount Pisgah for the first time really ever. So that's a fantastic thing. I wanted to use this occasion too to say this is a small step in what is a really impressive broad community that is dedicated to accessible outdoor recreation. In my submitted written comments, I listed more than a dozen organizations that I have worked with, and I'm sure I've left some off. And I don't have the time to read them off. I wish I did. I will mention, since I'm talking to the county, that it includes Lane County's Equity Program, which has been a great collaborator. And although I want to stop and smell the roses and celebrate, of course I have to add that we're not done. Yeah, no way. There is much more equipment needed in this rich county with all these wonderful resources that we have, more adaptive recreation equipment, more trail work to be done. And I guess I'll give a plug also for bus service to Howard Buford Recreation Area someday. So with that, I'll just again state my celebration of Lane County Parks. And next up to speak is Hollis Sjostrom.
Okay.
We'll shift your timer there. Hollis, you may have heard from before. Hollis has cerebral palsy, and he can't speak for himself, but it takes time. And so he's asked me to read his comments. So I have comments from Hollis. Still okay to read those? Oh, yeah. And so I'm going to read Hollis's comments. He has not submitted them in writing, but if you would like that, he's certainly willing to do that. So now I need a different hat. I'm speaking for Hollis. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Hollis Sjostrom, and it is a pleasure to be able to speak before you today. I have been living in Eugene since 1999 and had always wanted to hike at Mount Pisgah. I'm an avid outdoors man. While my mobility needs may differ from others, I have never allowed that to deter me from being as active outdoors as I can be. Where I have found the greatest barriers are almost always around accessibility. This was my initial experience with wanting to hike Mount Pisgah. There was no way to operate a wheelchair on the trails, which meant that I was never able to experience the Arboretum or Howard Buford Recreation Area. A couple of years ago, John Helmer received a recommendation about all-terrain accessible wheelchairs called David's Chair and started the mission to bring track chairs to Mount Pisgah. Now Mount Pisgah owns 2 track chairs free for public use. I met John at the Willamette Confluence and was the first person to sign up for the use of track chairs on the trails of Mount Pisgah. However, upon using a track chair for the first time, my initial excitement bubble was a bit deflated after learning that even with the use of an all-terrain track chair, I was still unable to reach the summit. This started my mind going, and I called Oregon Woods to talk to them about what could be done to make it possible to reach the summit. This was not exactly the start of my journey working alongside John. It happened in a very organic and roundabout way. As a member of the Wednesday Wheelers, which are the shirts we're sporting today, I was invited to be photographed by Kenji Shimizu with Shimizu Photography, who was working on a project to highlight the diversity and uniqueness of the residents of our community. This led me to working with John after being photographed using track chairs. Our shared passion to make this recreation area more accessible to all our community members led me to assist with trail surveying and recommendations on how to improve trails to make them more user-friendly regardless of a person's mobility limitations. I cannot describe how meaningful this experience has been to me and many others who are now finally, all in caps, able to reach the summit of Mount Pisgah. For the many more able-bodied individuals who have never had to think about not being able to experience the beauty of nature around us, having that constant access often makes some people forget what a privilege it is to be able to experience it at all. It is not an experience I take lightly, and it is one I am proud to say that I have accomplished now with the improved trails and the use of all-terrain track chair. Without the many volunteers, hours put into this project, continued advocacy for more accessible outdoor spaces, and the donorship of those who believe in this mission, this would not be possible today. Thank you all for prioritizing your attention on making Lane County a more accessible community for all its members. Thank you for your time, and take care. Hollis Sjostrom. Right.
Thank you so much for your public comment, and I'm going to have to change my story a little bit, Hollis, because I've been telling people you were the first one up there years ago with your track chairs.
Well, technically, he was, but he was the only person who could possibly make it.
That's my version. That's what I've been
You're not
saying.
wrong.
Okay. Thanks, John. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you all.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have David Niles.
Good morning. I'm David Niles, retired orthodontist and longtime community member, and this is my AV man, Robert Gemmel. Thank you for the opportunity to engage you today and share a plan that many of us believe will create an indelible statement for our community. An iconic Welcome to Eugene Springfield sign project with the initial intent of 2 large crafted and exquisitely designed signs adjacent Interstate 5, entering our region from the north and south. A symbol of character, creativity, natural beauty, and community pride that residents are proud to see and that visitors immediately recognize as an invitation into a special place. We are Tracktown, USA. We are the University of Oregon. We are the Willamette and Mackenzie and the beautiful mountains and valleys that surround them. That image inspires us. It's good for our community and it's good for our businesses. I've been talking to a lot of people who care, and a united front among Lane County, our state and local representatives, and community partners gives this project the strength and credibility needed to move it to completion. To that end, I recently connected with State Senator Floyd Prozanski. His strong support and partnership has been a clear sign of the value of this collaborative project and the real momentum it has. So I'm here today to make each of the commissioners aware of this initiative, and after discussion amongst yourselves, asking for someone with an interest to help me bring this project to fruition. I just became aware yesterday that we will be hosting the Olympic trials again in June of 2028. I couldn't help but think how wonderful it would be to showcase our region with this statement. This endeavor is about more than a sign. It's about civic pride, partnership, and the message we send to every person who arrives here. Welcome. You are entering a community that cares deeply about its identity and its future. Thank you for listening. Welcome your feedback and counsel, and would greatly appreciate your help.
Thank you very much for your public comment. Yeah, you can leave right here with our county administrator. Thank you. Next up, we have Andrew Frost. Your 3 minutes will start when you state your name at the dais.
Hi, my name's Andrew Frost, resident in Lane County. I was going to play the recording of you've all heard it, the guy that was sitting in a tree, a boundary tree that by law is protected, sitting in the tree, threatening to throw his can of gas over me and burn me and my property to the ground. Now, this guy'd come around on a Sunday telling me, move your stuff out of your yard, get it out of your driveway where you're working on it. You're sitting there, I'm making a table. I'm an ornamental smith. I was making a tabletop out of some cherry. I'm sitting under the tree in the shade. I came because this was a year ago, August 12th. I enjoyed my yard. What I had left of it after some of it got stolen in an unrecorded court proceeding in Lane County where there was blatant perjury that no one cares about. You talk about access to justice, what's the point? You've got a court system where you don't care about perjury. You make me pay for the cost of proving perjury. All you need is one official to phone one witness. In 6 years, they haven't phoned one witness to the prior use. They could phone the lady that owned the place before. Not one bit of curiosity, because of an inherent bias that I was facing from day one, where I wasn't the local. I speak in a rude fashion when people were threatening me on my land. I'm not really sure what I expect from you lot anymore. I've come back from burying my mum, whose words were last words. She couldn't speak. For 3 years, she couldn't speak. She had cordial basal syndrome. She could hardly speak. She wondered why it was that the city that she had loved, she used to visit from England. She's from Ohio, but she'd come here. She would say this is the most beautiful city, the best city. Way better than Portland. Way better than Hood River. She wondered why it was that you couldn't care about your own laws on planning that led to all of this. You don't care about planning laws, and now my mum's dead because of the stress from a court case that came about because a straw purchase agent wanted to make an illegal build right.
Thank you for your public comment. Next up, we have David Eigel.
Good morning, everyone. David Eigel. Talisha Brown has managed to pull off a $1/3 scam while pocketing $30,000 for herself of the funds that were available. It's understandable that she lacks primary source documentation for her narrative. It's fiction, not history. Her narrative asserts Eugene was a sundown town where blacks had to leave by sundown. The residents of the North Bank were black, and they resided there because their race prohibited them from living in Eugene. They lived in a vibrant community. They were unjustly removed by the county using eminent domain. As a result, they were deprived of the future appreciation of the land value. The timing of the taking by eminent domain had been scheduled so that the North Bank residents would not be able to obtain title to the land under federal homesteading laws within the next few months. Eugene was a sundown town in the 1940s and 50s. Ms. Brown's assertions are demonstrably false. 1, Eugene was never a sundown town. It has a documented history of black residents going back 135 years. About a third of the residents of the North Bank were white. Individuals had been given permission to temporarily squat on a rent-free basis on county land that was to be used in the future for the construction of the new Ferry Street Bridge. They were living there because of an extreme housing shortage, not because of their race. The North Bank had no electricity, running water, or proper sanitation. It flooded out on occasion, requiring the local Red Cross to find temporary housing for the residents. Alcoholics added their presence to the North Bank. The North Bank residents were squatters living on county land with permission on a rent-free basis. They possessed no ownership interest in the property. Eminent domain was not used to remove them. They had no interest in the future property appreciation. When construction of the new bridge was about to begin, their permission to squat on the land was withdrawn, and they were ordered to vacate. Federal homesteading was effectively ended in the lower 48 states by the early 1930s. Lane County land was never subject to federal homesteading laws. Eugene had 7 black residents in 1940 and 55 black residents in 1950. Other black residents were present during the non-census years. They were unrecorded by the census. For example, the Mims obtained their homes in 1948. I would ask that you please take action. I recently sent you a copy of a 1947 Register Guard article, which pretty much lays the basic problem out, as well as 2 examples from one from 43, 144, that specifically lists Black residents and their addresses in Eugene. And there are numerous other examples of Black residents in the Whitaker in World War II other people know about. This whole story is nonsense, and you need to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Next up and last we have here in Harris Hall is John White.
Good morning, John White, Cresswell area. I just want to address the situation that's come up a couple of times, at least to my notice, about people building first and then asking for compliance later. They do sort of a mea culpa and seek compliance after building whatever they've done. First of all, I think that if you're doing good work somewhere, you're giving money to people for whatever reason, you deserve full credit for that, but you don't have any sort of license to commit land use violations elsewhere. Also, if you have a reading of the U.S. Constitution that says something about if you feel like the government is taking something from you, then you have a license to take something out of the commons elsewhere, I don't buy it. By the commons, I'm talking about clean air, clean water, recreational opportunities, aesthetic features, and so on. This is not some communist notion. Well, maybe it is actually a communist notion, but it is a working feature of a functioning capitalistic society like ours. With regards to the Jones-McCann hearing about a month and a half ago, there were a couple of times when I found it really hard to follow the majority of the board's reasoning. For example, with hydraulic connectivity, it sounded to me like ODFW had determined that there was connectivity. I listened to the testimony a couple of times, and that's what he said, there is connectedness. But because of skepticism about the location where the test was done, the issue just seemed to evaporate. If the board felt like there was a problem with the location of the testing, I think it could have, I'm not sure, but I think it could have just asked for another test during another season perhaps, and figured out whether the connectivity did exist. The McKenzie is a treasure nationally, as well as locally, of course, and it's a world-class fishing destination. The fish have we should give the fish every opportunity to thrive. Also, with regards to the riparian setback declaration in EFU zoning, there's a 100-foot riparian setback. It's not contingent on the riparian setbacks of adjacent areas. It's pretty clear. With regards to remedies for the situation, I'm not exactly sure what should be done, but it might be worthwhile looking at finding contractors for their participation in doing work which isn't permitted. It sounded to me like in the Jones-McCann situation, the contractor was actually giving some sort of guidance how it could become feasible to do the building first in providing photographs, building according to certain standards and so on.
Thank you for your public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Ms. Gibb, do we still have somebody online?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do have Sean Maxwell joining us online. His hand is raised. Sean, I have unmuted you. Would you like to be on camera for your comments?
No, audio's fine. Thank you.
All right, you can begin when ready.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Sean Maxwell, and I'm here again regarding access to tax lot 1000 through the locked Lane County Parks Gate at the historic Morris Coon Road. This issue has now gone unresolved for approximately 10 years. The underlying facts are not complicated. In 1939, a court proceeding established the Morris Coon Road a public easement to provide access to these properties. For decades, the owner of tax lot 1000 had access through this route and was provided a key to the county's gate. The county later stopped providing that access. Through my discussion with county staff and council, the county has acknowledged that there's a technical issue in the historical easement documentation involving the short section between the gate and tax lot 1000. Instead of correcting or reasonably accommodating that technicality, the county is now asking the property owner to sign a key agreement that characterizes his access as county permission that can be withdrawn. That is the problem. The county's continued maintenance of a locked gate, combined with its refusal to provide unconditional access consistent with the 1939 court-established road rights, appears to constitute an intentional and substantial interference with the property owner's historic right of ingress and egress. The owner of Lot 1000 is not asking Lane County to grant him a new privilege. He is asking to regain access through a county-controlled gate on the same historic route that served his property since at least the early 1900s as documented. We have proposed an extremely reasonable solution to keep the gate locked, secure the key, prevent unauthorized use, and follow reasonable county rules. But the agreement must also state that accepting the key does not waive, limit, modify, replace, or prejudice any existing access, easement, road, or property right associated with tax lot 1000 or the 1939 court proceedings. That one protection would resolve the primary dispute. I'm asking this board to direct Parks and County Council to stop treating an acknowledged historical technicality as an opportunity to convert long-standing access into a revocable privilege. After 10 years, this property owner deserves a practical and fair resolution, providing a reasonable key access agreement, preserve the property's existing legal rights, and restore access through the gate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you
For your comment.
public
And
comment.
Chair, I'll return it to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Gibb. Okay, appreciate all the public comments. Next, we will move to the consent calendar, item number 5. All items listed here are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered separately. Do we have a motion?
Chair, I'll move approval of the consent calendar for August 18th, 2026.
Second?
We have a motion made by Vice Chair to approve the consent calendar for Tuesday, August 18th, 2026, seconded by Commissioner Trieger. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, now, next up, we have item 6, a joint meeting, Board of Health and Board of Commissioners. We will recess the Lane County Board of Commissioners meeting and join the Board of Health and meeting. Item 6A, and I see Ms. Inman coming. Brian Johnson coming. Got a full table. No wonder you didn't feel the need to come up here, Ms. Gray, Director Gray.
It's covered.
It's covered.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm going to take a moment to introduce Brian Johnson, our new Public Health Administrator. He's been with us for 6 months now, but this is officially his first Board of Health meeting. And I just want to take a moment to honor his leadership. He's been with the county for quite some time, having a number of roles in public health and brings extensive experience. For the county, he has been an epidemiologist. He's been one of our environmental health supervisors, most recently as a program manager, and now as our public health administrator. So welcome, Brian. Glad to have him here today. I'm going to turn it over to Brian to introduce his team. I do want to let you know we're going to be talking, though, about some very tender topics today around suicide and alcohol use. And so I just, we'll be doing lots of warnings today so people can take care of themselves. But I just wanted to make sure everyone in the audience and all of you can take care of yourselves. That's really important as we talk about these challenging topics that are also very crucial to discuss in our community. Brian.
Thank you, Katrina. So good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of you for our second annual Board of Health report. As you know, we come before you very frequently to update you on issues that impact all of Lane County. This morning, I'm joined by Michelle Hampton and Luis Pimentel, who will both be providing really the bulk of our presentation this morning. But before we dive in, I just wanted to give you a couple quick updates on some things that we're proud of that's happening in public health that just want to make sure you're aware of, and then we will move into the presentation this morning. So thanks you for the time. Thanks, Chair and Commissioners. So momentarily, we're going to do a deep dive into the interconnected issues of suicide and substance misuse. But before we do so, I'm briefly share two recent accomplishments in public health. The first being public health accreditation. I don't know if you're aware of public health accreditation, but we have recently completed what is considered a rigorous review process to maintain our national accreditation status, and we've been reaccredited for the next 5 years. This designation affirms that public health has proved our commitment to continuously improve, we're focused on remaining effective in improving the health of our community. And a lot like schools or hospitals, public health goes through a very a peer review and community-based review of our performance. And this acknowledges our accomplishments as a high-performing public health division. So public health accreditation is a measurement of both our health department's performance against a set of nationally recognized standards and practice-focused evidence-based standards. And it really sets the performance goal or target for our local health departments across the nation. There are more than 3,000 local public health divisions that serve our communities. And as of May, Lane County has once again met these high standards. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that that has happened again and that we are doing well with the resources we have and continuing to serve our community well. So, secondly, I wanted to share with you that the public health has been awarded approximately $650,000 through the Rural Health Transformation Program. I'm sure you've been tracking that the Rural Health Transformation Program is was established through the H.R. 1, the federal budget reconciliation bill that was signed into law in July of 2025. And in addition to introducing long-term changes to Medicaid and SNAP funding, and H.R. 1 created a five-year program to support rural health systems across the United States. The Rural Health Transformation funding will largely be invested into community-based organizations and services throughout our rural communities, and funding through this program will support projects that directly align with our community health improvement plan. And you'll recall from the last Board of Health meeting that our community health improvement plan has 3 priorities. They are affordable, inclusive healthcare services, community resilience and access to basic needs, mental health, substance use disorders, and well-being. So there are 4 key projects that are being provided through this funding. They are a community health worker workforce development project, a plan to identify, planning, and address gaps and barriers to services in West Lane, encouraging use of nurse home visiting services, and also some suicide prevention training and support services throughout our communities. So the Community Health Worker Workforce Development Project is helping to advance our goal of increasing affordable, inclusive healthcare services. It's continuing to create access points to healthcare across our county through community health workers. We'll support 4 sites, one in a behavioral health setting, which is in South Lane Mental Health in Cottage Grove, one in a primary care setting at Orchid Health in Oak Ridge, one in a school district setting in Mapleton, and one in a community-based organization in Siasala Outreach. And Iris Bickler with 15 Night is helping us really focus on a sustainable plan, which is focused on a billing model, which would allow us to continue these services beyond the initial granting period. The second project is a systems mapping project, which is really focused on the greater Florence area. This is a partnership with the Lane Council of Governments and the City of Florence, as well as others. And it's beginning a mapping of really the health and human services system and really trying to figure out where those gaps and barriers and opportunities are so that we can continue to plan and look to the future. It will overlay really predictive analytics, which allow us to look longer term and look out to the future and see where the opportunities might be. And just as a side note, we're pretty excited that we continue to really field unique ways to collaborate with our partners in Lane County, and in particular, in this case, the new medication assisted treatment center in Florence is really allowing us to strengthen our partnership in the greater Florence area, and is really, I think, has been a stepping stone to allow us to quickly seek out this opportunity and implement it. The third project is implementing a rural household. It's really a multimedia campaign that's focused on creating, sharing information about our Family Connects program, which is a nurse home visiting and referral-based system that will support folks in accessing our family and child health services. That campaign will focus on rural zip codes for the purposes of really just increasing awareness and participation in the program. As you may recall, Family Connects is a universal home visiting program which launched in November of 2024. The program has really been struggling to bring folks in and to make folks aware of it, and so this will be our opportunity to draw folks in and really help them to connect with services that can be supportive and helpful in all of our rural communities. The final project is a suicide prevention and rural outreach program, which is connected with much of what we will share with you today in greater detail. That focus is really focusing on strengthening our links to mobile crisis services and post-vention behavioral health in communities that really often don't have the infrastructure in place to support folks who might need it. So I just want to briefly mention Ms. Leilani Brewer and really Assistant Director Kachina Enman, who made it possible for this funding to come in a very, very short amount of time. We had a very tight timeline for providing the case for this, and also for really connecting with partners in a way that would meaningfully bring them into the project. This has happened and is bringing money directly to all of our communities throughout Lane County. And really, because of this work, we've been able to bring a large influx of funding that's going directly towards public health initiatives that are across all of our communities, and I'm hopeful that these opportunities will provide for advancing our strategic priorities of the Community Health Improvement Plan and much of the county's interest across the county. So at this point, I am going to shift because our focus today is really on our primary topic of the interconnected issues of suicide and substance misuse. And what we're seeing here in Lane County, what the Public Health Division is doing to save lives and really support communities and to help build and support the infrastructure that's necessary to really keep people healthy. We know that these issues are deeply personal. They touch the lives of many, many people. Fear, stigma, and isolation often help keep people from talking about these deeply impactful issues. And yet we know there is hope and opportunity to make things better, and both are preventable through coordinated public health strategies that prioritize early intervention, education, community collaboration, and equitable access to care. And today, again, I'm joined by Louise Pimentel and Michelle Hampton, and they will share with you on these issues that disproportionately really affect our youth and vulnerable populations throughout Lane County. And with that, I would like to turn it over to the two of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, Chair Senega, Vice Chair Buck, and Commissioners. My name is Luis Pimentel. I'm the Alcohol and Drug Prevention Program Coordinator with Lane County Public Health. My work focuses on preventing substance use, mainly alcohol and cannabis. My position is funded primarily from the Federal Substance Use Prevention, Treatment, and Recovery Service Block Grant. It's a long name, SUPTERS for short, and it's through the Oregon Public Health Authority's Promotion of Chronic Disease Prevention Program. As mentioned, I'm joined by my colleague, Michelle, who will introduce herself before her presentation. So excessive alcohol use is a major public health challenge across Oregon. Alcohol is currently the third leading cause of preventable death in our state, and that death rate has increased by 1/3 over the last 10 years. Today, more than 1 in 5 Oregonians drink excessively. Because this problem impacts so many areas, addressing it requires a collaborative approach involving public health, schools, and community partners. When I say excessive drinking, I'm referring to both binge and heavy drinking, which I'll define in a later slide. When we look at excessive drinking, conversations usually start with personal health, but as a county, we also have to understand its economic impact. So in 2019 alone, excessive alcohol use cost Oregon's economy $4.8 billion due to lost workplace productivity, healthcare expenses, criminal justice costs, and vehicle crashes. To put that in perspective, every single drink consumed in our state cost taxpayers and businesses $2.40. This was in 2019. The key takeaway here is that prevention is an investment. When we successfully lower excessive drinking, we directly reduce liver disease, violent crime, motor vehicle crashes, and certain cancers like breast cancer and colorectal cancer, saving both lives and public resources. This slide and the next show campaign images from the Oregon Health Authority's Rethink the Drink initiative. The goal of this campaign is to reduce excessive drinking and prevent alcohol-related harms across the state. Excessive drinking can mean something different for each person. It depends on several factors such as age, type of medications we use, pregnancy, or gender. OHA offers 2 ways to think about it. Binge drinking means having 5 or more drinks in one sitting for men or 4 or more for women. Heavy drinking is defined as 15 or more drinks per week for men or 8 or more for women. Both patterns significantly raise the risk of long-term health harms. Survey results from the Rethink initiative also found that many Oregonians don't really understand what actually counts as one drink. A standard drink is defined by pure alcohol content or alcohol by volume, ABV, and a typical 12-ounce beer, 5-ounce glass of wine, or 1.5 ounce of distilled liquor. The takeaway here is that drink size doesn't always equal drink count, because certain high percentage beers or large cocktails, which are common, a single cup or glass can actually hold more than one standard drink. When looking at excessive alcohol use, binge drinking is by far the most common, costly, and deadly pattern. In fact, more than half of all alcohol sold in the U.S. is consumed during binge drinking episodes and account for 88% of alcohol-impaired driving cases. One of the most important takeaways is that 90% of binge drinkers are not alcohol dependent. This means public health education can make a huge impact before addiction even develops. This slide looks at adult data on excessive alcohol use. Again, it's important to note that binge drinking is defined by having 4 or more drinks in one sitting for men or 4 or more for women. At 18.4%, Lane County sits slightly above the state average. And as you can see on the right, age does make a difference. Roughly 25%, or 1 in 4 adults aged 18 to 34 report binge drinking at higher rates compared to older adults. This tells us our prevention work needs to focus on reaching those young adults, but really older adults as well too. Moving to transportation safety, this slide highlights data from the 2025 Lane County's Transportation Safety Action Plan, or TSAP, which serves as our roadmap towards zero severe injuries and deaths on our roads. Impaired driving is involved in nearly half of all severe crashes, with alcohol contributing to 29% and other drugs to 17%. The report also shows that rural areas face more than double the severe crash rates of urban areas, showing us where safety interventions are needed. From a public health and prevention standpoint, this data helps us target our efforts where they matter most, focusing on impaired driving interventions and prioritizing safety improvements on our rural roads.
Hey, Louis, when would we like questions? Like as we're going or at the end?
I think we're thinking at the end.
At the end, okay.
Yes. Moving to transportation safety, different slide. To address traffic safety, our county fatal crash incident team successfully secured grant funding from the Oregon Department of Transportation for a 2-year project starting this October 2026, running through September 2028. This project focuses on 2 high-risk corridors identified in the Transportation Safety Action Plan, Marcolo Road and Clear Lake Road. The project will combine a public education campaign, higher law enforcement visibility, and safer ride options to stop impaired driving before crashes happen. And I might be back next month to give an update along with our other fatal crash incident team members on the grant itself. To address public education on excessive alcohol use, in 2025, Lane County Public Health, in partnership with Benton County Public Health and staff from the Rethink to Drink initiative, launched a 10-week bilingual campaign encouraging college football fans to promote safe habits. Messaging prompted simple habits that included pacing alcohol with water, eating, and arranging designated drivers, and respecting choices not to drink. This image is one of our highly engaged social media ads. it's that sense of community. It's where we got the most click-through rate. It then forwarded people to the Rethink the Drink website where they could learn more information about excessive alcohol use and where to find resources. And in 2026, Lane County Public Health, in partnership, again, with the state Rethink the Drink staff, secured a media partnership with the Eugene Emeralds to promote safe alcohol use and fan safety during the baseball season. Again, messaging prompted simple habits that included arranging a designated driver, respecting everyone's choice not to drink, and just excessive alcohol education material. Oregon Student Health Survey. So under House Bill 2556, Oregon school districts are now required to offer the annual Student Health Survey to 6th, 8th, and 11th graders. In 2024, we saw strong participation across Lane County, collecting survey results from a little over 3,000 8th and 11th graders across 14 of our 16 school districts. Because participation was voluntary in previous years, it's important to note that 2024 results cannot be compared to prior survey results. Looking at our 2024 Student Health Survey, we wanted to see how substance use connects with student identity. Across our county, 25%, or 1 in 4, 8th and 11th graders said they have used alcohol, marijuana, prescription drugs, or other substance use at least once. That 25% average is shown by the dotted line on the chart, but when we break down the numbers by background, we see a big difference. Students from marginalized groups report higher rates of substance use, from 28% for Black African American students to 39% for students with disabilities. From a public health standpoint, this shows that substance use doesn't affect every student the same way. Higher rates often mean these students are dealing with extra unaddressed stressors. As we build on prevention programs, this data reminds us to focus on extra support and resources where our students need them most. On this slide, we look at the association between food insecurity and substance use among our 8th and 11th graders. The Student Health Survey measured food insecurity by asking students how often they go hungry because there isn't enough food at home. Overall, 14%, or 1 in 7 students, reported going hungry at least once a week. Now, it's important to note that while we can't say that hunger directly causes substance use, there is an association between the two. As hunger goes up, substance use goes up with it. For students who are never or almost never hungry, 21% report using alcohol or other substances. But for students who go hungry almost every day, that number jumps to 52%, more than double the rate. This link shows why basic needs like food access is such an important part of our prevention efforts. So by using the Student Health Survey results and framework from the social determinants of health, we created the Substance Use Prevention Mini Awards that put local opioid settlement funds directly to work in our county. Public Health was able to award $214,000 over a 2-year period across 6 local community-based organizations to fund their programs and services. The funded projects tackle key environmental drivers of substance use, specifically food insecurity, social isolation, and stigma. Our first group of mini award grantees focus on strengthening basic needs and family stability. Lane County Bounty and Whitaker Family Market are increased access to fresh food and nutrition education through pop-up markets and farmers market tokens. Meanwhile, Relief Nursery supports healthy, substance-free family activities and parenting recovery groups to build strong social connection and reduce daily stress. Along with nutrition and family support, our second group of community grantees focus on rapid healthcare and youth intervention. Well Mama offers recovery support groups for parents to break intergenerational cycles of substance use. Oregon Social Learning Center operates a mobile clinic van offering same-day counseling and behavioral health care. And finally, Looking Glass runs youth groups that provide prevention education and reduce stigma for at-risk youth. While our local grants meet immediate needs, we also track community health attitudes. Lane County Health and Human Services has tracked this perspective since 1998. While it's important to note is that in 2009, we began asking residents if they would support a 25-cent per drink charge on beer and wine to fund local prevention and treatment. As we can see from the chart, public support has grown. climbing from 60% in 2009 to a high of 69% in 2022, showing strong community backing for prevention investments. So backed by that 69% community support and the fact that Oregon's beer tax is ranked 45th out of 50 states and has not been raised since 1977, Public Health regularly advocates for evidence-based alcohol sales tax and surcharge policies. This is also in direct alignment with Lane County's 2025 legislative principles and priorities that supports efforts to increase Oregon's beer and wine tax. We've submitted formal letters supporting state beer and wine sales tax bills and the most recent OLCC 25-cent surcharge extension to ensure that our community maintains dedicated funding for prevention programs. Yes.
So, good morning. I am Michelle Hampton. I'm the Suicide Prevention Coordinator and the Postvention Response Lead for Public Health. And I just want to second what Kachina started us off with. While I talk about suicide every day, it's not always the case for everybody, so this really is a subject that I will ask that you all take care of yourselves. If somebody needs a break, please feel free to take one, and that goes for everybody in the room. So first, I'd like to start off with this map that the CDC created. Oregon rate of suicide is higher than that of the national rate, and I think doing this work often feels like we're alone, and this map helps me feel not quite so alone. It shows that we actually are in some pretty good company across the states. While that doesn't create a great picture from the standpoint that there are more states that are higher than the national average, it does show that it is not just Oregon, and in fact that we do have some other states that are working as hard as we are and have more work to do than we do as well. I was able to attend a community of practice through NACCHO, which is the National Association of City and County Health Officials, and in that practice, we were able to get people from across the country who are addressing suicide prevention to have conversation about what's happening. And what was evident and apparent is that we are all looking for the answers and that it's going to take a variety of creative thinking ideas to be able to actually affect what's happening. So you've seen Luisa's slides on substance and mental health, and this slide has a lot of information on it, but what I want to draw your attention to really is that 53% on the far right in the black dot. Again, this is school student health survey data, and it's from 2024, so these surveys can't be compared. However, if you look at those who have considered suicide in the past 12 months, 53% have also used a substance. So we like to just tie in the coordinated efforts here. According to the Youth Suicide Intervention and Suicide Prevention Plan, or the YSIP, that Oregon Health Authority puts out, suicide in 2024 was the second leading cause of death among people ages 5 to 24. And Oregon's suicide rate of 13.5 per 100,000, which was above the national rate at 9.9. Again, going back to that map, we are still in good company there. And what I really want to focus on today is the work. So I want to talk a little bit about the Suicide Prevention Coalition of Lane County. This coalition has been meeting for more than 15 years with a variety of facilitators and a variety of folks in attendance. In the last year, I've spent some time with Jonathan Rochelle from the University of Oregon's Suicide Prevention Lab, and he was tasked with doing some evaluation on suicide prevention coalitions around the state, trying to determine what works and what doesn't work, and trying to get this work done and get people who are interested and able to attend meetings. I then met with Angie Elstone from Lane ESD, who co-facilitates the coalition work with me. And she and I sort of brainstormed and came up with a creative idea and thought we would just try it and see what happened. So we'd been meeting monthly, and we had in attendance 8 to 12 people each month. The difficulty was that we were trying to be productive and get work done during those meetings, and it ebbed and flowed from this 8 to 12 to this 8 to 12. So it wasn't a consistent 8 to 12 people, meaning we had somewhere between 16 and 24 people, but it was always a different mixture. So we spent a lot of the meetings catching people up on what it was we were doing. Angie and I met and opted to host a one-time in-person large meeting that brought anybody and everybody that we could connect with suicide prevention in any way into the room. After an impressive response of more than 50 attendees, we have now used that collaborative as our coalition. Towards the end of that meeting, we asked folks if they would be willing to continue to do this work together in the room, and we had an overwhelming yes. We now meet twice a year with work groups meeting in between. So our work groups are the Training, Education, and Outreach work group, which is facilitated by my coworker, Adria Godin-Bynum, a postvention work group, which I facilitate, and we are currently in the process of creating a third work group, which is made possible by a small grant that Angie Elstone and I were able to apply for that will focus on substance use and suicide. So this is actually really well timed because we're noting the importance. Because suicide prevention really does intersect with so many other areas, I just want to share a little bit about the makeup so that you understand when we're talking about 50 people coming together in a room that we're talking about people from everywhere. So we have representation from the K-12 schools around the county, and that is inclusive of our 3 larger districts, but also a variety of rural district representation. We have higher ed, not only the University of Oregon, but Bushnell and Lane Community College in attendance, substance treatment providers, and alongside them, we have recovery peers who are coming in to meet with us. Folks from veteran-serving service agencies, along with people from Parks and Recreation, so youth-focused. Crisis response teams from around the county, including Western Lane, they're coming over to attend our meetings. And our TIP team, or the Trauma Intervention Program folks, also coming in. And then we have individuals with lived experience as well as survivors of child loss. So we're actually hearing voices from folks who have dealt with the subject firsthand. Again, training, education, and outreach is all one group. These are the trainings that are provided, and I just want you to see that there are a variety of those. Adria and I are both trained to facilitate and lead groups in QPR, Assist, and Connect. Adria is currently working on her certification for OCOM, and I will be starting that in the fall. And then we have community partners and folks at Lane ESD who are able to lead the Be Sensitive, Be Brave. QPR, just for those who don't know, is an entry-level gatekeeper 2-hour suicide prevention training, really teaching people how to ask the question, are you considering suicide or have you considered suicide? And if the answer to that is yes, how to persuade and then refer those folks to help. Assist is more of a 2 full day, 8 hours each day, meant for intervention and includes safety planning with folks, so really lets people get their hands in there and learn more about the process. And then OCOM is the Counseling on Access to Lethal Means as it has been adapted for Oregon. So it really is to provide Oregon healthcare and direct service providers an approach to lethal means counseling with informed, collaborative, and respectful language. It can be really difficult to have conversation with folks about locking up their firearms. And the reality is this teaches people who may not be gun owners how to have those conversations and how to talk about the fact that it's around safety. So if your firearm isn't on you, that it should be locked up for safety of those in the home. And then our Connect Postvention training is for communities to plan a response after a patient or a client has died. by suicide. And this is really for those agencies who may have higher risk. So we work with first responders and veteran-serving agencies around training staff to be prepared. It really would be good for any agency to take this, as suicide does not, it occurs in all populations. So, and then finally, again, BSBB, which is another entry-level gatekeeper, two-hour-ish training that is put on by our partners at Lane ESD and volunteers. And then through education and outreach, we table at a variety of events. We team up with our veterans, and part of that is that not all veterans use VA resources, so we like to be there and partner with them so that they know there are other options. So we attended Pride and had a table at the Veterans Village. We will also table in mid-September at the Lane County Veterans Stand Down. And then we attend other events like Springfield Block Party. We do some national night out, some things around the county, and some of the smaller events. And along with providing education and safe storage information, we also recruit volunteers who may be interested in working with us. Then I facilitate postvention, and there's Oregon law which states that the medical examiner needs to inform public health if there has been a death by suicide in anyone 24 and under. Because we get those notifications, it allows us to do the work that we do, which is to coordinate and work with our community partners on how to respond to those deaths. I work with, again, Angie at Lane ESD, who has a tragedy response team that is made up of folks from the larger districts and some of the outlying districts. And those folks, if there is a death by suicide in a youth in any school in the county, that tragedy response team can respond to help out. Some of our smaller districts have very few staff who may be really connected to these students and so can be impacted. And this allows an outside team to come in and assist. Along with them, we have the TIP program, and I'm sure you have heard about the TIP program, but they are folks who are called to tragedy around the county by first responders. If TIP is involved, they also are able to respond to not only the family who may be in crisis, but also to help with the schools. So they're volunteers. They have more than 50 volunteers, and they're able to help with some of our safe rooms. And then finally, Suicide Rapid Response is a partnership between Lines for Life, who funds the program, and Oregon Health Authority, and this allows us to access resources so that if we are in a response and there is a need either by the family or the community, we're able to actually respond to that. We have been able to help with things like providing counselors in some of our rural areas, not only in the school, but to help family and friends who need folks to be there. Transportation's an issue, right? Not everybody can get in. So if we can get counselors out to them, that's extremely helpful. We've been able to pay for things like funeral costs, some funeral costs. We can contribute to that. We can help with need if rent is due. There hasn't been something that we've needed to ask for that has been turned down. So we are greatly appreciative of this. And then finally, the other resources that we have to offer really are safe storage boxes. So we have single and double pistol lock boxes, as well as long rifle locking containers. We have ammunition storage containers with padlocks that keep that all locked up, and keyed medication storage lock boxes. And then I just want to share a little bit about 988, which is our go-to resource. And the fact is they were dubbed as sort of the crisis and suicide hotline. While that's true, they are sort of changing their approach now. And they are interested in people calling them before they're in crisis. So yes, you can still call when you're in crisis, but you don't have to wait. So we're working really hard to share that message that please, if you have something you need to talk to somebody about and you don't have anybody to talk to or feel like you don't, 24/7, 365, 988 is there. And then finally, I I just want to end with, as public health, we're going to continue to focus on the prevention of suicide and substance misuse through coordinated strategies. We work closely with each other and with other team members. We work with our community partnership, who receives funding from our CCO, Trillium Community Health Plans, they fund Sources of Strength, which is a primary prevention program, which helps increase protective factors, which addresses substance misuse and suicide prevention. So while they're doing something completely separate, it is still overlapping with the work that we're doing. And we'll continue our collaboration across the county and are looking forward to continued investment in our prevention systems, evidence-based programs that will allow us to improve mental health outcomes and continue to reduce deaths in Lane County. Thank you.
Okay. Well, to the board, do we have any questions or discussions? Commissioner Trieger.
Thank you. I can kick us off. Thank you for the presentation and the care with which you do this work. It's really appreciated. And the care with which, how you talk about the work. I guess moving from the most recent back to Lewis, just one quick question. The map of mortality rate show us that California and New York are doing something right. And those are both states, right? They're dense, they're high population. California, much like Oregon, a mix of rural and urban, large cities, small towns. So there isn't a clear like, well, that's a fill in the blank state. So California in particular, what are they doing right in Oregon, in California and New York? Do we know that they are so much lower in their mortality rates?
We would love to have the answer to that question. We do not. Thank you, Commissioner, for the question. There actually are a variety of states that are doing better, and it is the question, what are they doing better? And as you see from that map, not everybody knows the answer to that. So I'd love to look into that more.
I mean, I would imagine it's a constellation of things, and there's not this one thing that causation, correlation, because Oregon has done some things right around access to firearms and registration of firearms that some other states haven't. But I'm just, if there's any even nugget that you've heard, like, oh, that might be one of the things contributing to their lower mortality rate.
The things that came up with the discussion around the states that had the higher rates were seclusion. People are further away from resources, so there are a lack of resources, not just in our rural communities, but if you look at the lack of transportation and folks being able to get to resources, even in the Eugene-Springfield area, if you live miles from a bus route and don't have the ability to do that. So folks being able to access healthcare, being able to access behavioral health care, again, after the fact, we're able to bring counselors into the community. There aren't always counselors available in the communities. So access to resources and firearms. We're, very much a rural state. So it is just a fact that, yes, we have hunting families and sporting families, and so higher number of firearms.
And I think I know the answer to this question, but the reason we talk about the data of mortality rates is that's the thing we can definitively measure. Attempts we can't measure because a lot of them happen and they're not reported and we don't know. Is that right? So we don't know the relative difference between attempts versus mortality rates.
Yes, and even in mortality rates, when you're talking about suicide, it's an underrepresentation for a variety of reasons.
Great. Thank you for that. My other questions are about the alcohol and SUDS presentation. The 25 cents per drink charge, I don't know if this is you or I see Dr. Pat's in the room, hi, or maybe our policy director. Are we preempted by the state from doing our own public health funding mechanism through a surcharge on beer and wine?
Thanks for the question, Chair Seneca, Commissioner Trieger. I believe so. I think it is something that has to go through our state legislators and be approved there. I know legislator Representative Sanchez will be, I think, introducing something new in the upcoming legislative session.
Great. Thank you. I mean, I figured we often are, which is frustrating, particularly in public health, right? As we like to say, the state should be setting the floor, not the ceiling of what we can do.
I will add, though, but it is nice to have the survey data and know that our community is in favor of that 25-cent surcharge if it goes to prevention efforts and treatment.
Well, often
Sharing that with our state folks.
Yeah, we often know on the ground in community, people are supportive of things, but that there are some pretty powerful groups
Oh, yeah.
that have access to legislators in a way that everyday people don't. So I'm very interested in pursuing or understanding that more, and whether that'll come as we head into the session, whether that is at the retail level or the restaurant level or where that lies. But thank you for that. I mostly brought it up just to put a pin in it, as they say, because it's important. The other question, and then really just a comment, is the age chart of alcohol consumption groups 18 to 24-year-olds, I think it was. And I'm curious why we don't peel off the underage, the 18 to 21, and then say 21 to 24, because I would imagine there's some really different interventions and enablers we need to be looking at when it comes to alcohol consumption for underage people.
Yeah, and this is just some of the data that is available to us, and it's the Burfus data, it's the Oregon and the CDC data that set those parameters of the age groups. I don't know, to my knowledge, if there's something specifically that cuts off at certain ages just to look for 21 and over. But I do use just the state and the CDC data that's publicly available.
I know there's always more data than y'all can present. That's what public health is good at, a lot of things, including collecting lots of data. But I also know we've done a lot of work around licensure that helps us make sure that sales aren't happening to underage folks. So just digging in a little more on that, I'm very curious about the underage drinking as opposed to or distinct from just younger adults, because I think there's different opportunity. And to that, my last, not so much a question as a comment that relates, is the younger, the earlier in life we can intervene. And to your point, what you said, prevention is an investment. In public health in particular, the more we invest in prevention, the better. And so I know it was mentioned in the overview about universal home visiting or the nurse family part, we mentioned one of those programs. That is the investments we need to be making, and that I will always support us prioritizing those investments as a county in those earliest intervention programs we possibly can. And particularly in the case of alcohol use, you didn't talk in this presentation about where and how those lifelong impacts show up on babies born to women who drink during pregnancy. Talk about prevention opportunities. And so that just connects directly to why we need to keep supporting things like universal home visiting and our nurse family partnership program, because that's where we can really make the most difference earliest for the least amount of money for the greatest alleviation of suffering later. So thank you for the presentation and again for your work. Really appreciate it.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Chair. This is a wonderful presentation. It's one that the presentation itself is one we should all put in our pocket and be able to pull out some of the slides on a regular basis. Wonderful data in there. I'll talk about the data in just 1 second. But first, I'd like to talk about the real issue that I feel is the access to resources, which you both mentioned, and the access to resources for whether it be in crisis, when you're in crisis, pre-crisis, or just determining if you're eligible for crisis. We simply don't have the resources there. If you have somebody who wants to dry out, for instance, get in line. Try to find a place to dry out. I'm using that as a broad expression. If you want to quit using alcohol and you know that going to a place that doesn't charge an arm and a leg, for instance, we do have private facilities that are relatively expensive, but we don't have any public facilities that are commonly accessible to people. And what's the reason for that? Well, in no small part, there's no money to pay for it, right? When we talk about a single drink tax, whatever you want to call it, 25 cents per drink, I think is the number that's been thrown about. I want to give you a bit of a history on that. Louis, you said that the tax hasn't been raised in how long?
1977.
1977, just after Vicatia left the governorship. So it's a political matter. It really is. And we're talking about the legislature. I was the state legislator in the 2003 session. It came up. I supported it. It failed miserably, bipartisan. Now, after 2003, when I was a state legislator, the legislature shifted. Prior to that, it had been kind of Republican-dominated. Since then, it's been predominantly Democrat. There's no difference. It's the same. All legislators overwhelmingly reject any discussion of beer and wine tax. It's been stated that it's a strong lobby. Maybe that's the case. I don't know what that is. But it really is not. It is a political issue, and it's Democrats and Republicans that disdain taxes in the legislature on beer and wine. And it's not the governor's office that causes that. It's the 60 and the 30 that cause that. So how do we affect that? Well, if we've got a magic bullet on that, because when I was there in 2003, Bob Ackerman and I were leading the charge on that. Bob was on one side of the aisle, I was on the other, and it fizzled. It died. Didn't even get a hearing. So that's the nature of the Oregon legislature. So how do we crack that nut? If we can focus some attention on that, and maybe during the campaign phase, we get our legislative potentials to commit to providing greater access to resources. That's what it's all about, is greater access to resources. Will you commit to greater access to resources for people who have substance, and Brian used the term misuse instead of abuse. Substance misuse, it matters. If we have greater access to resources, then we're going to have a greater response and fewer people who are suffering from the tremendous effects. And not just the people who are using, but the people, the concentric circles that live around them. So to me, that is the big issue, is how do we get more access to resources? And we do that clearly. We can't do it locally. It's got to be done through the state legislature, which the House is Democrat, the Senate is Democrat, the governor is Democrat. When I was there, the House was Republican, the Senate was split, the governor was Democrat. It doesn't matter. Republicans and Democrats get them all to commit during their campaign phase, and then when they are elected, hold their feet to the fire so that they do withstand what is a very persuasive lobby. Because, and one last thing I'll say about that is when I was in the legislature, I talked to a colleague from the Coos Bay area who later became a senator, and this colleague was against the beer and wine tax. And what she said was that for many of my constituents, beer and wine is the only thing that they have to comfort them. That's not the exact term that she used, but she used for recreation, whatever it may be. And that was the reason that she voted against it. Ostensibly, that was the reason she voted against it. But we need to overcome that, because access to resources is what it's all about. I think you have a wonderful presentation. I'm going to print it. I'm going to have a thumb drive. I'm going to use your slides with your permission over and over again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. I learn more and more every time you come and do a semi-annual report about everything that our public health department does. And one of the things that I think surprised me, and maybe it shouldn't have, but it did, was the slide on food insecurity and substance use regarding students in the student survey. And it said that this is 8th and 11th graders. And this really stood out to me because I honestly did not know there was this link. And to me, it also just confuses me how they have access to alcohol, but they don't have access to food. So how does that happen for our students? How is it that if they're going hungry every day or 3 times a week, in this particular survey, they have access to the alcohol when they really just need to eat? I don't know how that comes about. I wish we could delve into that more. Having a student myself, it worries me. It worries me about their lives, their friends' lives. Makes me wonder how many in their classroom or in their school are going hungry every day. Just another reason that all students should be able to eat at school for free anytime they need to. And I don't know what demographics there are, because I'm sure there's even more information if you dig down into particular demographics of students where this is more prevalent than others. But if you have any additional insight, I'm very curious.
Vice Chair, Commissioner Buck, that is a great question, and there is some information to share about that, and it has to go with access and cost of alcohol as well too. The accessibility that students or youth have it in their home, if their parents or guardians leave alcohol in the fridge or on counters and things, that's an accessibility. But last year we did a tobacco alcohol retail assessment where we assessed a little over 70 retail shops that sold tobacco and alcohol, and we found 24-ounce. The state picked Twisted Teas as the main one. They're 24 ounces. They're about $2 on average. It was like $2.70 something cents. So it's a really cheap alcoholic drink that has more than that standard size alcohol by volume. So very inexpensive, super colorful, really attracts youth's attention, and you can find it at any gas station or retail shop. And at a lot of times it's confusing. We also found that there's a lot of cross marketing. So a lot of like the energy drinks are hard alcohol now as well too. So you can just grab something by accident, and maybe the self-checkout clerk or anybody else might not notice and just ring it up. That there's a possibility, but we do see the cross marketing between, say, Mountain Dew and a hard Mountain Dew. They look very, very similar, and they're under $5 for a 24-ounce can.
It seems like there's definitely work to be done there, because I believe we have laws on the books where we should not be marketing alcohol to youth. But it sounds like people are bordering on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And if a kid likes tea and they say, oh, Twisted Tea, that doesn't speak alcoholic tea, where it should be like very obvious so that children don't pick up something that they otherwise thought was non-alcoholic. And so it feels like we should have ways in which we can tighten up those particular rules. And it's true, like if families have alcohol in their fridge or a fridge that's not locked, then kids might pick it up. It's just sad for me to think that they have a fridge available with alcohol, but they don't have a fridge available with good, nutritious food in it. And if you just compare never being hungry to those that are hungry almost every day, from 21% to 52%, that's astonishing to me, and something that every parent should be thinking about.
I also do want to point out too that through the opioid settlement funding through prevention, we were able to help Lane County Bounty and the Whitaker Market specifically support youth in those nutritious food access in different areas. The Whitaker Community Market also hosts rural family markets as well too, so it's not just our Eugene area. They are supporting our youth in our rural communities as well too.
I would just add too, it's so hard for us to compete with big tobacco and big alcohol. That is almost impossible at the local level. So we look at all strategies that we can, but competing with multi-million-dollar campaigns and marketing strategies becomes very challenging. So I very much appreciate you bringing this up, and we always look for ways that we can continue to combat that at Public Health. And it's a struggle.
And building awareness is huge. Check out the colorful cans in your local grocery store, and you'll be surprised.
A quick thing to that, Chair.
Please, Commissioner
I would just say there's oodles of evidence that children learn brand recognition and brand loyalty before they have verbal skills. And that goes directly to what Ms. Inman was just saying. That is absolutely by design by the industries that need to cultivate lifelong consumers for them to survive. So it is no accident.
Can I add one little thing also?
Well, let's go.
This is actually for Dr. Pat in the back. I still have that flavored vape that you gave me 14 years ago. Sorry, I'll get it back to you sometime. But it's the same thing, isn't it? You make it taste like cotton candy, so it goes down easy, you know. And,
Or say cotton candy, it doesn't even have to taste like it.
Precisely, or ours is Girl Scout cookies, actually. But and I'm not sure which flavor, because I've not tried it. But, you know, when I was in high school, it was Boone's Farm Apple, you know, so.
Mr. Lovell.
Thank you, Chair. Kashina, Brian, Michelle, Louise, thank you for all the work you do. I debated whether to weigh in on this because it's a pretty tough topic for me to talk about. As you know, my son committed suicide almost 50 months to the day. He hung himself by his boot shoelace in a public park. So when you talk about gun access and all that, if people are going to find a way, they'll find a way. And what I want to talk about too, just a little bit here, is the 53% you said substance use was involved when considering suicide. That's really, when you consider the margin of error, kind of a null topic, because 50% or 40%, 47% of the other side had nothing to do with substance abuse and still wanted or did commit suicide. I think in answer to Commissioner Trieger's question, I thought about it for a minute, and I really debated whether to weigh in, but I think the reason that some of those states have reduced suicide rates, and this isn't the only reason, is because of Oregon's restrictive civil commitment laws. Families are at a really disadvantage when they're trying to advocate for a loved one in the state of Oregon. There's nearly an impossible way they can do that. HIPAA laws prevent any information from transacting from the situation where their adult child may be facing crisis to get to the family to actually help. It's a uphill court battle. Sometimes ours took 6 months of jail in, jail out time to finally get our son in front of a judge, and the case was thrown out because a piece of paper wasn't signed adequately. It was something that the attorney and the judge really regretted doing, but they had to abide by the law, and so 6 months of work was down the drain. But I think the civil commitment laws address three consistent issues that we face as people that deal with people who are suicidal. Is that expressed ideology that you'd mentioned when they start talking about it or making hints about it? What do we do? Where do we take them? How do we get them to convince them to join us and partner with us to go to a public health facility or a personal doctor or whatever? That alone is really tricky. When they get scared, they run, like what ours did. And then so now you have a standby staff of medical people who are saying, look, if you can just get them to come into the office, we'll make an appointment available. And that alone is really difficult to do when you're dealing with that. The second thing about a civil commitment is it doesn't allow the dealing with mental illness for someone to intervene to actually bring them help so that they can realize that maybe they need help when they don't realize they need help. And then that old axiom about the harm to self and others is just a barrier that I wish that nobody would have to face, because I wished, you know, A, I didn't want my son to harm himself, and two, I didn't want to look somebody in the eye and say, I'm sorry that he harmed your daughter or your son or whatever. And so I think that civil commitment component is really big in the state of Oregon, and I hope that as a public health entity in Lane County and a leader in doing a lot of things that Lane County does for the benefit of the state, that we would push that issue at large. And I've said this for 4 years since I've been here, because that is the biggest roadblock to caring family members trying to get the care that their loved ones need. So thank you. I appreciate you letting me talk about that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do appreciate that. And first I want to acknowledge and thank you for speaking up on a topic that is really difficult and very near and dear to our hearts, right? And As far as the civil commitment goes, I can't speak directly to that, but what I can tell you is I had included in the packet initially a slide that became, it would have taken too long to explain all of the information that was included in that slide. One of those things was talking about the number of folks in care, and it was divided between those 5 to 17 and those 18 to 24. And those who were getting treatment in the 5 to 17 were roughly 30%. It was a higher number than those who are 18 to 24. And what you're speaking about is those folks who turn 18 and no longer are under mom and dad's. You will go to your appointment and you will be seen and you will. So you're on to something, definitely. I know you know that. But it is very apparent that those who are older were getting less treatment. So I appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, these numbers, the second leading cause of death for ages 5 to 24 is just astounding. I mean, that's hard to even read. We brought up alcohol and marijuana for the kids, and there was a 53% of any substance. Are we gaining on, explaining to kids the dangers of fentanyl? I believe it was in one of these meetings where I learned 3 granules of salt can kill a kid. And how is that prevention going? I didn't see it in here, so I was just curious.
Thank you, Chair Senega. We do have an opioid overdose coordinator within prevention, Alexander, and his work specifically it focuses on overdose prevention and fentanyl education. He helped create the Fentanyl Aware campaign that Lane County Public Health has a website. He does provide Narcan education training to different organizations and schools. He does a great partnership with our schools to make sure they feel supported. They have the necessary supplies and trainings. But that's as high level as I can speak about his specific work.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, those are all very important messages, so, we appreciate all that work. And, just as you're talking, I was thinking about something. You are absolutely correct. You see kids walking around with energy drinks nonstop, and you don't even think twice to look at it. I mean, who knows what it is all the time. You're not going to stop and check and look at the label. But I was listening to a podcast about topics similar to this, and one of the topics they brought up was what a great time to hide your alcoholism, because everybody's got a flashy can in their hand, or everybody's got a water cup in their hand. And, it's just one of those things where we know that we need to make adjustments in our communities and, really, really lean into this prevention and explaining to people. The numbers are staggering. They speak for themselves. And, just thanks for bringing this to us. And it makes me really think about the kids and, the school board work we do. And that's another tool we can use to speak with our state representatives, Commissioner Farr, as you were talking about, using every tool we can. And we just need to get more people involved in understanding these messages. So thanks for bringing it to us. Appreciate it. Okay. Well,
Chair, can I point out one statistic? A twisted tea is 24 ounces. Typically, they run, 8%? And what's a regular beer? 3%? It's 12 ounces and 3%. So a twisted tea is...
one standard drink for a 12-ounce can of beer is 5%.
5%?
Yeah, that's
okay.
One standard drink.
So you double that at 24 ounces in a twisted tea, and then you do 1.6 on the alcohol, on the number of drinks. So 2 twisted teas is a binge. Then. Okay, all right, good, thanks.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
It's an advertising slogan they should.
Cheap binge.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That will close the joint meeting of Board of Health, and we will reconvene the Lane County Board of Commissioners meeting. Next up, we have item 7A. Thank you very much. Okay, 7A, this is the time set for the first reading for Order 26081810 in the matter of approving the amendment of Chapter 18 of Lane Code to modify the ambulance service area plan to replace South Lincoln Ambulance with Western Lane Fire EMS Authority for ASA Area Number 2, Northwest LC 18-100.025. And I see Mr. Vehar and Director Gray here.
Okay. Well, I can get it started, and Mr. Vehar has been doing the heavy lifting on making sure that everything is done properly here. But this is a continuation of the conversations that we had had before the recess, where we had an ambulance service area in ASA 2 in the northwest part of our county that was vacated, and Western Lane Fire and EMS, their board authorized coverage for that area. So you all had taken an emergency action to permit that change to occur so that we did not have a gap in coverage. But now we are going through the formal process to request assignment of ASA number 2 to Western Lane Fire and EMS. And anything that you would add?
Yeah, and so because of the way we handled the last process, there is an interim designation that will exist essentially until we get the final designation completed. So this is really just us kind of completing that circle for ASA 2. And so even though this process will take another reading as well too, we have to go to a public hearing to be able to finalize it. And then there will be a subsequent action brought before the board to be able to change lane code to be able to adequately reflect the new ASA plan, because our ASA plans incorporated in our code. All that being said, though, there still is the allowance for them to operate essentially until we get all that done. So this is just us making sure all the boxes are checked and we're following all the state laws to properly designate them as a new ASA provider, or reassign essentially the current ASA that's there. The state laws unfortunately require that even though this is just an order, we have to go through the process of a non-emergency ordinance. So that's why this is going to look maybe a little different than you would normally see. Usually you see an ordinance associated with public hearing. This is one where we do still have to do it in the way we do a non-emergency ordinance, but what will be the end result will be an order signed by this board that will then allow for Western Lane to operate. So really, again, this is just checking the boxes that we need to, and before the next public hearing, we will have done everything we need to per our code to notice everyone, including newspaper circulation. So we are making sure that people are aware of the public hearing that we're asking to be set on September 1st. Then public comment can be given, but we are hoping at the end of that meeting, we can then allow Western Lane to fully take over.
Okay, perfect. The board, do we have any questions regarding this process? Yes, Vice Chair.
Quick question.
Hmm?
We're doing a lot of work regarding ASAs recently, including this one. And I was wondering if this was an appropriate venue to share an update on what we're doing for other ASA providers. We do have that EMS task force that's working on long-term solutions. But I thought I'd ask about some of the other work that you're doing.
Sure. I can give a brief update. I think you're referencing the discussions that we have on a potential code update. So there is a fire district in the Upper McKenzie area that would like to be able to offer ambulance services within someone else's ambulance service area when they can respond faster. And we are working very hard. We have come up with, I think we've been through 4 drafts now of lane code, and we're just notified that Upper McKenzie would like some other substantial revisions, which it's making it a little bit challenging for us to move rapidly because I don't know that at each step of the process we've had a clear understanding of what the ultimate goal is related to this. So what we are balancing in that circumstance and with a potential code revision is our obligation, our legal obligation as a county, is to make sure that we have 24/7 ambulance access throughout all of Lane County, and that we measure response times. And as we saw with ASA 2, an ambulance service area holder who does not wish to provide services anymore, whether that be because of funding or whether it be maybe because of conflict between agencies, they have a right to withdraw from that ambulance service area with very little notice. And there are very limited options for us, as we've seen in this process, to be able to reassign an open ambulance service area. If we were to end in a situation where conflict between agencies resulted in us not having 24/7 access to ambulances in some part of the county, that would be our violation of the law. Because we are accountable for that 24/7 access. And so what we're trying to do now is really understand where the ASA holders are positioned in this and what collaboration looks like when another entity wishes to operate within that ambulance service area, given the risks that are involved if we are to push so hard that we would push potentially an ambulance service area holder out. So these are the things that we're trying to balance in these conversations. I know that there's been some media, there's been some frustration around perception that we are moving slowly. What we are trying to do, though, is maintain our legal obligation to 24/7 access to services in every part of Lane County. So we are trying to get the group together in person to have a conversation, to understand more about the new requests that have come forward around what our code, what the request is that our code would do, and what we can get agencies to agree upon. We will get a draft of something to you, and I don't know that we will have complete agreement when that happens, but we're working as fast as we can in that direction, given the evolving conversations.
I appreciate that. I been in touch with you about that and am up to speed, but I thought it was important that the rest of the board knows where we're at and that we're trying to be as flexible as we can with the code given within the constraints of the law, and that hopefully we'll come to an agreement with some updates very soon. So thank you.
Okay, well, I suppose we can call those staff's additional comments if you'd like, or do you guys have anything else before we call for a motion?
No, not on this matter.
Okay, is there a motion?
Chair, I'll move approval of the first reading and setting the second reading and public hearing order 26-08-18-10 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion made by Vice Chair to approve the first reading and set order 26-08-1810, in the matter of approving the amendment of Chapter 18 of Lane Code to modify the ambulance service area, plan to replace South Lincoln Ambulance with Western Lane Fire EMS Authority for ASA Area Number 2, Northwest, for a second reading and public hearing to occur on September 1st, 2026 here in Harris Hall. Seconded by Commissioner Trieger. Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciated. Okay, next up, I think we've got you, Mr. Mokrahysky. Do you have any announcements?
I don't have any right now, so I'm happy to hold until after the work session tomorrow if anything comes up.
Okay. Well, then we are going to leave here and go to an executive session. The Board of County Commissioners will now meet in one executive session. The session is to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection and to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. It is held pursuant to ORS 192-6602F and ORS 192-6602H, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are precluded from attending. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. Members of the news media are not allowed to tape, video record, or otherwise record an executive session. Verbatim notes are prohibited. No decision may be made in executive session. We will return to regular session at 1:30 p.m. here in Harris Hall. We'll start at 11 o'clock.